Welcome to Ramad Yom Shir. We are dedicating this year for the Atzlocha of Klal Yisrael in this time of war. May Hashem be with us. Bezal Hashem. Only Hashem can help us through the Torah we're learning. I just thought today that Rabbi Yochanan says in Masechet Sanhedrin, the person who learns Torah Lishma protects the entire world. But his Torah, not just Am Yisrael, protects the entire world. The right people. Yeah. So says the Mishnah. Let's go. The Mishnah that we are about to start, Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph, in the very, very bottom of the page. Still talking. That's the last Mishnah of this parak to talk about Bishul. Says the Mishnah, Ilfas v'hakdera. Ilfas is a frying pan. V'hakdera is a pot. Sheviran merutochin lo yiten l'tochen tavlin. So Ilfas and Kedera that were removed off the fire in Ben Hashmoshes right before Shabbos, which is when it was normal by people right before Ben Hashmoshes or maybe during Ben Hashmoshes to remove the pot off the fire. So this is Kli Rishon, full of food, and you just took it off the fire. Now you want to spice it. You want to put some spices inside. So says the Tanakama, this is what? Kli Rishon, off the fire, right? So we learned in the previous Mishnah about water, according to one explanation, that the truth is both explanations agreed with it conceptually, that Kli Rishon off the fire is Mevashel. The Kli Rishon, as long as it's Yad Toledis boy, it maintains the heat. So now says the Mishnah again, Lo Yiten Lo Torchen Tavlin. That Kli Rishon off the fire, once it's Shabbos, you're not allowed to put the tavlin, the spices inside. So the Pnei Yeshua asks the question, what's the chiddush? We know it already from water, right? Why do you have to say again Kli Rishon of the fire is Mevashel? So the Pnei Yeshua answers, he follows Tosfos, the way he understands Tosfos. The big machlokes Rishonim here. Pnei Yeshua follows Tosfos that, according to Pnei Yeshua, Tosfos says that tavlin is something which is harder to cook. Yeah? Yes. Which is very interesting because usually we look at tavlin as kala bishul. So he says, no, tavlin is not, or maybe harder than water. And therefore, that's a chiddush. Even tavlin, which takes longer to cook. I'm not sure tavlin means the small pieces of the powder that we have. Maybe these are like vegetables. I don't know. They're very, strong, very spicy. Takes a long time until they change their texture. I don't know. That's the chiddush, says the Pnei Yeshua. Although this is something which is hard to cook, still it does get cooked. Yeah, Bishul applies to it, even the Kli Rishon of the fire. Yeah, that's the chiddush here. Now the Ritva says even more. The Ritva wants to say that Kli Rishon of the fire, and he's saying it here, he didn't say it before, even when it's not Yad Toledis boy, you're not allowed to cook in it. That's what he holds. He holds that even if it's not Yad Toledis boy, touches midrabanan, that's not the halacha. Yeah, but if it's any Yad Toledis boy, Kli Rishon is that bad. Okay, that's what the Ritva said, but we're not going that direction. Aval, however, continues the Mishnah, Ke'oro actually does not mean ke'ara in Hebrew. Ke'ara means a plate, the plate you eat from. Tamchui is a bowl or a serving dish that you take from the pot into the serving dish, from the serving dish to the plate. Yeah, like a serving dish. In any event, both ke'ara and tamchui are kli sheni. So kli sheni, ena mevashel, Rashi says kli sheni doesn't cook. And therefore, a tavlin, even tavlin doesn't cook in kli sheni. Okay? Doesn't cook kli sheni, neither anything else. L'chor is not mizbashel kli sheni. Although we saw in Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph at the top of the page that kala bishul are mizbashel. So maybe we think your tavlin is not kala bishul, right? Okay. Rabbi Yehuda says a very interesting statement. Lakol hu noisen, you're allowed to put anything into the kedera, when he doesn't say if it's Kli Rishon or Sheni, chutz midavar shesh b'choy mitzvetzir. Rabbi Yehuda's statement is very ambiguous, very unclear, but Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to cook in any kind of that kli, either Rishon or Sheni, except for a kind of tavshil, a stew that contains vinegar or tzir. Tzir is the brine of the fish, which means the vinegar and the brine of the fish, they make anything cook faster in them. So Rabbi Yehuda says Now, we don't know if to pin Rabbi Yehuda to Kli Rishon or Kli Sheni. The Gemara will discuss that. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm only concerned for a Kli with food if the food contains chometz or tzil, the spicy, hard, acidy things, because they really make it cook more, and then it's a problem, but not otherwise. So it sounds like. Very esoteric Mishnah, and we're going to Be'ezus Hashem explain everything. Before we continue, just a small, we're about to finish Bishul, and I looked more a little bit into the halachas. So let's just have a quick overview about Kli Sheni. The Tosfos in Daf Lametes Amud Aleph said, Kala Bishul can be Mizbash on Kli Sheni, and that's our Klal Yisrael today. Many people are concerned with Kli Sheni because we don't know what's there's a source in the Rishonim for that too. What's called Kala Bishul, what's not. Tosfos also said, and Tosfos is going to get into trouble later here. Tosfos also says a Kli Sheni one shouldn't cook in because it's mechzik, or you may come to cook, or it looks like you're cooking. Yeah, in Daf Lametes Amud Aleph. Yeah, Tosfos says the Kli Sheni, that the Kli Sheni ensher in the Mayim Chamin mechzik mevashel. That's Tosfos Lametes, the second Dibur over there. It looks like you're cooking. You know, people don't always know if it's Kli Sheni or Rishon off the fire, and therefore Shita Tosfos there is that Kli Sheni may be mechzik mevashel. And we also saw the Shita, the source of the famous Shita of the Chaye Adam, that Kli Sheni that has real boiling hot water, not just soledis but nichves, could also cook. And some people are concerned about that too. And he claims that's the Ambati we learned about yesterday. I followed the regular opinion about his Kli Rishon, but he says otherwise. Okay. I'll start an overview about Kli Sheni. Okay? It's good to know that before we start the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Ibai lehu. There was a question about the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, what did Rabbi Yehuda mean when he said anything is okay except for food that contains chometz v'tzir? Arei shakai velekula. Are his words pinned, connected to the first part of the Mishnah, which is Kli Rishon, and is being lenient, which means, what did the first part of the Mishnah said? Kli Rishon, even off the fire? Oy v'voy. Rishon, I don't care if it's off the fire. Everything cooks there, tavli and everything, yeah? Comes Rabbi Yehuda, lekula, says no. Kli Rishon off the fire doesn't cook everything. It doesn't cook everything. It doesn't cook Kli Rishon off the fire. So what is the only thing that cooks with Kli Rishon off the fire? You know what? That is only something that contains chometz v'tzir. Right? Now, Tosfos here wants to say, let's look at Tosfos. It's a very little Tosfos. Lekol k'deros roischos. Look at the first wide line Tosfos. Lekol k'deros roischos unoisen, says Tosfos, nira de davka betavlin polig. Which means, according to the opinion that Rabbi Yehuda is being lenient, it's not that Rabbi Yehuda is saying now that Kli Rishon off the fire is never cooks. He's only arguing in tavlin. That's what the Achronim learn. The tavlin is something that's hard to cook. Because it's hard to cook it, Rabbi Yehuda argues and says Kli Rishon of the fire doesn't cook hard stuff like tavlin. But other things such as water, let's say, or even regular food, he agrees it does cook Kli Rishon off the fire. That's Tosfos' understanding in the sugya. So that's one way to explain it. Oidilma, or maybe aseifa kai v'lechumra. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda's words actually relate to the seifa, to the second part of the Mishnah, and he's coming to be more strict. Meaning, the second part of the Mishnah said, Kli Sheni, do what you want. Avlin, other things, no problem. Cook whatever you want. Kli Sheni. He says no. Lechumra. What's he saying? That really no. Yeah, he's coming to say Kli Sheni, if the food in the Kli Sheni contains chometz v'tzir, the acidy, hot stuff, then you are not allowed to cook. He's limiting the leniency, the kula of Kli Sheni. We don't know what Rabbi Yehuda means. Yeah, how do you connect his words to the Mishnah, l'chuma or l'kula? And here comes a very clear braysa. The problem will be resolved very easily, very good. And he says like this. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, Rabbi Yehuda says, the same Rabbi Yehuda, yeah? L'kol ilfasin unoisen, l'chol k'deros roischos unoisen, ilfas and k'dera rishon or sheni, my friends? Rishon. Ilfas is a frying pan, k'dera is a pot. You're allowed to put anything you want, k'dera or sachas unoisen, what's midavel shesh b'chol mitzvtzir. In other words, says Rabbi Yehuda, that Kli Rishon off the fire does not cook, only something that has chometz v'tzir, only that cooks, right? By Kli Rishon off the fire. Lamaisa, before we continue, I think it's the Ran. I saw someone in Rishonim, I forgot already who says what. I think the Ran is the one who says the concept of the Mogen of Rome. He says that Really, some things cook in Kli Rishon of the fire and some don't. Kli Rishon of the fire, it cools down very, very slowly. It maintains it for a very long time, but it does cool down. It's not mamish getting the fire all the time. So he says that the things that are light, they're easily cooked, they cook there, and those who are not, don't cook there. But we don't know which one's which. We have to be machmir across the board. The same svar the Mogen Avram says about Kli Sheni, right? To be machmir. But he says about Kli Rishon. Kli Rishon of the fire, don't play with fire. Excuse the pun. So therefore, just anything should be. That's what he said. Oh, having said that, we'll have an easier understanding on the next piece. Sada of Yosef Lamema, Rav Yosef wanted to say, Melach hareu ketavlin. Melach is always known to be a very mysterious thing, complicated things in Hilchos Bishul. Every Sefer Halacha you look has a special section on salt, on melach. Says Rav Yosef, melach is like tavlin, meaning what? The Bikli, according to Tanakama, we follow Tanakama. The Bikli Rishon boshlo, in Kli Rishon the melach, yeah, your wife wants to take the Kli Rishon off the fire, and put some salt. To add salt to the cholent off the fire. Why off the fire? Because on the fire you're not allowed to put anything, even with the rabbanon, because it's mechzik mevashel. You never do that. You never add stuff to Kli Rishon on the fire, even on the plata. Yeah. Now Kli Rishon off the fire. What about that? Kli Rishon boshlo. The fire in Kli Rishon off the fire it cooks. Ubekli sheni loy boshlo. In Kli sheni salt doesn't cook. Yeah. Okay. So you can add the salt to your soup. Your chicken soup, your cholent, if your wife is not insulted, put the salt over there in Kli Sheni. Now, that's what Rabbi Yosef wanted to say. Omar la Abaye. Abaye is coming to refute what Rabbi Yosef says, which happens many, many times. Omar la Abaye, Tani Rabbi Chia. Look, there's a Braisa about Rabbi Chia. What does Rabbi Chia say? Melach eina ketavlin. Melach is not like ketavlin. The Bikli Sheni nami boshlo. As opposed to tavlin, however you define the tavlin is easier or hard, melach is even easier to be cooked, and melach even in Kli Sheni cooks. Yeah, melach is super kala bishul, right? As we've seen kala bishul Kli Sheni, and melach, is kala bishul. It cooks very easily, very quickly, and even in Kli Sheni it's misbashal. So melach even in Kli Sheni is a problem. Okay, that's what the Braisa says. However, Pligad of Nachman, that Braisa argues with Rav Nachman da Amoiro. The Rav Nachman tzricha milcha bishula kebisra de toiro. Rav Nachman says just the opposite. Rav Nachman says that the melach needs a lot of cooking as much as the flesh, the meat of the bull. You have like a strong steak, like ossobuco, one of these things that take a long time to cook. Yeah, they need a long time to cook, and they don't cook in Kli Rishon of the fire. Remember what I told you? Here's the source: that things that are kashe habishul, they don't cook on Kli Rishon of the fire, right? That most Rishonim say off the fire, including Rashi. Of the fire, the hard meat doesn't cook, Kli Rishon of the fire, and salt is as bad as that. So okay, but I hold like Rav Nachman, I hold like the Braisa possibly that the salt is not cooks even in Kli Sheni. Very extreme achloikas, very extreme achloikas. We see on one hand an opinion that says the melech cooks very easily, and another one says the melech is so hard it doesn't even cook in Kli Rishon. I don't want to shock you, but the Meiri says he doesn't even cook in Kli Rishon on the fire. That's Das Yochid almost. Even on the fire, the melech doesn't cook. Food cook, maybe the Rabbanon you can't, but that's if it does cook even on the fire. What's pshat? So the Meiri says like this. The Meiri says that melech dissolves very quickly. I don't know how their melech was, maybe not ours. Today, the melech, they add all kinds of chemicals to the melech. I saw in Rav Rubin Sefer today. The melech depends which one. There are different sources of melech from the stones, from the sea. The melech dissolves very quickly, but it doesn't really change the taste. It doesn't really change the texture at all, or maybe after a very, very long time. That's the argument. So one opinion says, look, it dissolves in Kli Sheni. Look. The other one says, no, I don't care, it dissolves. It says in Meiri, it would have dissolved even in cold water. So it's not called cooking. It dissolves in water. Shkoyach. Like Leila Seder. Cold water with salt, yeah. Mashain can, with real cooking, without cooking, never cooks. I mean, cooks maybe after a very long time, as much as the hard piece of meat. So that's an extreme machlokes here. Veikadamri, some say, the same idea, but actually not this, on the same concept, different thing. Some say Sova of Yosef Lameima Melach Reu Ketavlin. The Bikli Rishon Bishla Bikli Sheni Lo Boshla. So far, so good. The same as before. Rav Yosef wanted to compare Melach to other spices and say Kli Rishon it does cook in a kli rishon even off the fire. Kli sheni doesn't cook. Okay. Omar la Abaye, Tani Obchia, Melach ena ketavlin. The bekli rishon nami loy boshlo. Here, the Bryce of Rav Chia is saying that melach doesn't cook even in kli rishon. Melach is very, very hard to cook. It doesn't cook even in kli rishon off the fire. The Hainu Domer of Nachman, Rav Chia supports Rav Nachman's opinion. Yeah, in other words, Rav Nachman is the same, Rav Yosef is the same. Rav Chia is the one who changed from first to second version. But Lamaisa, we have two opinions. Yeah, we have two lishnas. In Rav Chia, do we say that melech is very easily cooked even in kli sheni, or do we say melech in kli rishon, that even there he doesn't cook? Says Tosfos here, and the Rishonim and many say like that. So let's be machmir and don't put salt in kli sheni. Don't put salt into the soup bowl. On the other hand, Rav Nachman is the one that's consistently saying the melach is hard to cook and doesn't even cook in kli rishon of the fire, right? And Rav Nachman was a choshev achroin from the achroin amiroim, and he's later in the sugya. And when it comes to Gemara, we have to follow the later opinions. Appears a lot in the in the poskim, and therefore a lot of Rishonim would like to pass on to Rav Nachman. L'maisa the vacillate, well, lekula, you're too allowed to put salt in the cholent of the fire, kli rishon of the fire. L'maisa, what Tosfos says, and other Rishonim say, and the Shulchan Aruch says, or Mishnah Berurah, I've seen it today in Halacha. It says as though Meikar Adin, you can put your salt even in kli rishon of the fire, but hamachmir, not to put melach, salt even in kli sheni, tov olav bracha. It's better. You shall be blessed. You want a bracha? You don't need a bracha from kupa, whatever. You need a bracha by not putting the salt even in kli sheni. And of course, the question is, does that apply to salt today? And of course, I told you it's not all here. But I checked it by Rav Rubin, and he says, actually, I already saw in the parish of the Mishnah of the Tiferes Yisrael, he says, our salt, he lived in Germany over 100 years ago, and he says our salt is different to their salt because it's been cooked already before. And Rav Rubin says, even here in Israel, some what's the name? Some factories cook the salt before. That's not a problem in Bishul Achar Bishul. And some factories do not cook it, so you have to know. So Lamaisa, again, but even if the salt is not cooked, to put it in kli sheni should be okay, unless it's tov olav bracha. Even kli rishon of the fire is okay, but that's without a bracha, not recommended. One more topic which is mentioned in Tosfos, a long Tosfos over here, is irui. In other words, this is something which is definitely worth mentioning, because there's something here that falls between the cracks. In Hebrew, we say fall between the chairs. You know that? Ah, wow, I'm impressed. Nofel ben hakisot, באנגלית זה between the cracks. Nofel ben הסדקים. And that is what? And that is the point of irui. Kli rishon is mavashel, even on the fire. Generally speaking, I'm not going kale, kosher in general. Yeah, kli rishon off the fire, even off the fire. Mavashel, kli sheni is not mavashel. Generally, what about irui? Which means if I pour from a kli rishon, coffee, tea, I pour from a kli rishon onto something. Yeah, I me'arif from a kli rishon. I take something kettle off the even the urn, kli rishon, irui into the coffee or into the whatever. Is that called kli rishon mevashel? Kli sheni eino mevashel. So Tosfos says the ganze business over there. The maskana of Tosfos, which a lot of Rishonim say, and that's halacha. Irui is mevashel kedei klipa. Irui doesn't cook the whole thing, but it cooks the outside layer, like the klipa. It has the amount which is equivalent to like a klipa, like the skin of the food, even if it doesn't have skin, even if it's a piece of whatever that is, apple, I don't know, apple has skin, whatever, yeah. So that, and therefore you're not allowed to do it because you can't cook even the skin. He brings nafkaminas for kashrus, for other things, but basically irui kli rishon, I think there's nafkamina maybe for liquids, I don't know, whatever that is, but generally it is also because if it's irui is mevashel kedei klipa, and that's bad enough. The Mishnah didn't talk about it, yeah, because it didn't talk about the kedei klipa. The Mishnah only spoke about clear cases of yes or no. And the ear is somewhere in the middle. It cooks part of it and not the whole thing. The chatchila kli rishon is not mevashel, and as I said, most people kli sheni are machmir. There are coolers in kli sheni, but the gadol, generally speaking, you're allowed to cook in kli sheni something that was in kli sheni you're allowed to put that's one famous cooler which we use every Shabbos. Kli sheni you're allowed to cook a famous Mishnah Berurah. In kli sheni you're allowed to cook liquids that were cooked before Shabbos and got cold again, like the tea essence. Now those were machmir, more bnei brak. But like in my house, and most people, that we don't make tea on Shabbos, only from essence. So the essence, we cook the essence, the tea bags in a kli, yeah, before Shabbos. Then it cools off. It cools off, and then to the kli sheni, I add the tamtzit, the essence of the cold, cooked but cold tea, the tea juice, the tea essence, and that's fine. Because that's, for example, a kula, because it's a machloikis. Even bishul achar bishul belach is a machloikis. Plus kli sheni is only a chumrah. So we join the two kulas together. Again, ask your rabbi, don't look at me, but that's one quite clear example with the Mishnah Berurah. Okay? Irui mikli sheni is okay. There is a tois, it's not like that, but pashtus it is. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And again, nichves is a different business. That's chay odom. Some are machmir, some are not. Okay, beseder, beseder. So now, we're going to say lehitraot, shalom v'lo lehitraot. To bishul, we're going to start now muktzah. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening. Weiter. Says the Heilige Mishnah. Okay, that Mishnah, it's not exactly about muktzah. The Mishnah is about, it's to do with muktzah. And from now until the end of the parak, we're going to discuss muktzah. And it's to do also with concepts of mevatel kli meichonoi. Mevatel kli meichonoi means, you'll see that more tomorrow, not with me. Mevatel kli meichonoi means that when a person pauses halachically for something to stay in its place on Shabbos without being moved. Yeah, let's say you put a kli somewhere and the muktzah will fall inside of it, then it will become a basis. You put a bowl under, let's say, dripping water. Let's assume the dripping water is muktzah. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's an example. If whatever is inside the bowl is muktzah, you're not allowed to move the bowl because it's basis. So now this is basically, at a home prisoner, wherever it is, the kli. Says Rashi over here, that act midarabanan is also because it looks like boine. It doesn't say the word boine, but that's what they explain. It's as if you built it there. Because halachically, like you attached it without cement, you attached it with halacha. So therefore, you shouldn't do it on Shabbos because this is mevatel kli meichonoi. That applies in all kinds of cases. Yeah, also today, even when you bring shanal halacha l'maisa, when you do a pitzuchim, I don't know how Americans relate to that. Yeah, but like the Israelis, what we do. So I don't like it personally, but my kids do. So if you have the pitzuchim and you have a plate, it's not so simple because now the plate, you can't move the plate because the pitzuchim are on. So some people, they put a spoon before they put the pitzuchim's the skin of it, yeah, and then it's basas adover mutar veha also, and then it's okay. Just an example. Right. Says the Mishnah, En noisnin kli tachas haner lekabel bois hashemen. One is not allowed to place a kli under the candle to accept the oil, which means you have a nice Shabbos candlesticks, yeah, but for some reason it's dripping, the oil is dripping. You put on Shabbos, you want to put, without moving it somehow, you manage without moving it, you put the kli under the candelabra in order to accept the oil that's dripping. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. Why? The oil is muktzah, and that's a whole discussion which we'll discuss later. Why? I'll give you a hint. Rabbi Shimon, which we say is always lekula, Rabbi Shimon says normally muktzah doesn't apply in all kinds of cases. So Rabbi Shimon says there is no muktzah. Obviously, there is muktzah, but it's less than Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says that a candle is muktzah as long as it's a light, as long as the muktzah, as long as the candle is on, has the flame in it, then the oil of it is considered as dedicated for mitzvah. Because you dedicate it for the mitzvah, what's the muktzah? What's muktzah in English? Dedicated, set aside. That's what muktzah means, set aside. The muktzah also in modern Hebrew, haktza'ah, the shul, you know that from the area, right? They always say, will the shul get the haktza'ah? Or they get it like a designation in one, place in town. Muktzah means what? I designated for one thing out of my mind. It's only designated for one thing. And therefore, when I designated the candle for mitzvah of adlokas neros, therefore, then the oil is only for mitzvah, and I'm not allowed to use it for anything else. Okay, I'm not allowed to. Let's say the oil drips over wherever underneath. I can't take my pita and take some oil with a pita. Why? Because it's been designated for the mitzvah. So now, what about placing a kli underneath? Even worse, because when you place a kli underneath, you're doing one of two. Either it's mevatel kli meichonoi, as we said, right? Mevatel kli meichonoi, because now it's full of muktzah, it became a basis. Or there is another reason, which we'll see today in the Gemara. It's called en kli nital ela letzorech dover hanital, which means just like you're not allowed to move muktzah according to some Amoraim, you're not allowed to move kosher kalim, good kalim, for the sake of muktzah. It's an extension of the gzera. Muktzah is so muktzah, you're not allowed to service muktzah on Shabbos. And since the oil is dripping, Mimela, when you put something to accept the oil, you are serving and servicing the oil, yeah, by taking a kli and moving it for the sake of muktzah. That is an extension of Isur muktzah, which some Amoraim hold that was part of Gzeras Chazal. Don't deal with muktzah, is extended. Yeah, we're machrim muktzah. Don't take other kelim to help the muktzah, even without the idea of bosses. They don't agree, even without the idea of mevatel kli meichono. It's a different shita. We're going to see in the Gemara 2 shitas. I mean, I hope you learn the Gemara tomorrow and on Shabbos. Today we're going to go through one shita. Continues the Mishnah. The im nesanumi be'odyo muta. If they place that plate under the oil before Shabbos on Friday, no problem. Why? Because on Friday you do whatever you want. You're allowed to take the oil eventually also, and you're allowed to enjoy the oil too. Why? Eventually, after the thing will be out, the candles, by the way. But that's it's allowed. Tosfos says, and Tosfos says it's not even b'diavad l'chatchila. It's Friday. You're allowed to l'chatchila take the plate and put it under the oil, because on Friday, there's no problem whatsoever. Now, ve'ein ne'oisin mimeno lefi she'enu min hamuchan. However, you're not allowed to ne'oisin. You're not allowed to benefit from the oil as long as the candles are on. At least you're not allowed to benefit from the oil because it's muktzah. Einu min hamuchan, meaning as long as the candles are lit, even the oil under them that fell down, Tosfos stresses that, is also muktzah, because all the oil, as long as it's lit, is called muktzah for you. So you can't even take the pita, yeah, and enjoy and take some ne'oisin while the fire is on. After it's off, maybe another question, but for sure not when it's on. Okay, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chizda. Now, Rav Chizda, now we're going to extend and compare the case of the Mishnah to another case. Says Rav Chizda, Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda will be argued by Rav Yitzchak. When you see it tomorrow, remember, Rav Chizda and Rav Yitzchak argue. This is Rav Chizda's opinion. I'm preparing you for tomorrow a little bit, yeah? Amar Rav Chizda, Afal bishamru ein noisnin kli tachas ternigoyles tekabel betzoso. Mazel tov, your chicken, yeah, your female chicken wants to lay an egg on Shabbos. An egg that's been laid on Shabbos, muktzah, not muktzah. What do you paskin? Muktzah, because it's noilod. Noilod is an extension of muktzah. Why? Because we're going to see the very famous line in Dafim Gimel Dalef, which means whatever the halachic status or physical / halachic status of an item on Erev Shabbos, that sets its tone for the entire Shabbos with a lot of nafkaminas. One huge nafkamina is noilod. If the thing was not in the world on Shabbos, it was inside the chicken's body, yeah, the beitza wasn't even there at all, and it was born on Shabbos, it's a whole new thing. It wasn't in the world on Friday afternoon, and therefore it's also to use. Yeah, because it's like it wasn't there. You have to have, the idea of muktzah is you have to have everything prepared before Shabbos. That's the idea of muktzah. Some people learn it from that pasuk. Prepare everything before Shabbos. That's the idea. Don't come into Shabbos and then Shabbos new things begin. So the egg is muktzah because of noilod. Now, listen to this. Let's say that Tarnagoyles laid the egg on a midroin, yeah, on a slope, and the egg's going to break. What do? You quickly cut a plate and you put it in the bottom of the hill. And when the egg rolls down, it will be accepted by a nice cushioned plate. You're not allowed to do that. Why aren't you allowed to do that? Well, we just saw it in the Mishnah, right? And by the way, Rav Chizda does not, as we're going to see soon, it's not because of Mevatel Kli Meichomer. Rav Chizda doesn't believe in that. He believes more in the other thing, as we'll see soon. But Rav Chizda says, we saw in the Mishnah, you can't put something under muktzah to accept the muktzah. Right? For whichever reason. Let's just leave it to that now. Although this is true, aval, however, if the animal gave birth, laid the egg in an ashpa, like in the back of the house where they usually run around, and it laid the egg there on the ground, you're allowed to take a kli and koife and cover it so it doesn't break. Yeah, you're allowed to put it on top. Okay? So now, Omar Abba, my time with Rav Chizda. What's Rav Chizda's reason? Why is it worse to put it underneath, but it's okay to put it on top? That's a question about Rav Chizda, right? Under the egg, if the egg's going to fall there, is not allowed. But once the egg is born on a flat surface, to put the plate on top of the egg is fine and is okay. What's the reason of Rav Chizda? And again, okay, Kasava, Rav Chisda thinks as follows. We're going to see in Machlokes Rashi Tosfos. I'm following Rashi first. Kasava, Ternegonis Asuya Latil Beitzosa Ba'ashpa. It's normal for a chicken to lay the egg in an ashpa. In ashpa is like the back of the house where all the garbage is. In the back of the backyard, that's normal. That's where the chicken lay the eggs normally. The Eina Asuya Latil Beitzosa B'mokum Midroin. In the first case, where the egg is rolling down a midroin, a slanted slope, there it's not normal because people don't live like that. You don't allow your chicken to go to such a place. It's not the normal, delivery room for the chicken, yeah? And so what? The hatzala metzuya hetiru, v'hatzala shen metzuya lo hetiru. Let me explain. Hatzala, to save mukte, to save, according to Rashi, I'm talking now, not following Rashi, to salvage a muktzeh item in a normal way, in normal settings, the way it's supposed to happen, that they allow. You remember the second reason I gave you? You're not allowed to take something to service muktzeh, to help muktzeh, to assist the muktzeh. Rav Chisda wants to differentiate and say depends when. If it is in something that's common, normal, then they do allow you. They allow you to do that. That's something expected and accepted and normal. And that's something that Chazal were not that goizel, as opposed to but to take something for muktzeh in order, in a case where it's abnormal, where it's kind of out of the box kind of case, such as in a midroin, that they don't allow. This is what he believes. And the Tosfos Rosh, although he says it to Tosfos, but I can connect it to Rashi, says Chachamim only allow you not to do too much out of the box. You're supposed to do things the normal way, the way Shabbos is supposed to look. But if it's something that's an out of the orderly case, that much, they don't allow you to go that far. I'll explain Tosfos now, then you'll have an easier understanding. Tosfos and many Rishonim, Ramban, Rashba, I saw them inside. They all argue on Rashi for different reasons, and they say even without muktzah, they say to save something, to salvage something they have, which is money, they only allow you on Shabbos if that thing is normal. Says the Tosfos Rosh, why? Because that's part of your Shabbos. That's not called too much tircha. The problem is tircha, says Tosfos. You're not allowed to be tircha on Shabbos. Why aren't you allowed to feed animals on Shabbos? It's tircha. Why aren't you allowed to carry big chairs on Shabbos stam unless you have a good reason? It's tircha. It's exertion. It's hard work. You're not supposed to work hard on Shabbos. So if it's something normal, it's not called too much tircha. Here Tosfos says, mishum tircha, the very end of Tosfos Hatzolo. Mashaken, something that's part of Shabbos, it's not called tircha, it's expected to happen. Is it tircha to move around? It's something normal. Something not normal that happens, and I start working for it, that's called not normal, it's called tircha. That's what Tosfos says. Right? But Tosfos says even without muktzah, stam tircha. Rashi says this is true regarding muktzah dafka. Don't start servicing and changing things from muktzah unless it's something that is commonly happening on Shabbos. Now let's continue. Abaye is now asking a question on that. Are you sure that Hatzala on something that doesn't normally happen, they did not allow? I'll show you a brisa that says otherwise. A person has a chovis full of wine, and that wine is tevel. The wine was not meiser. Meiser wasn't taken, so it's muktzeh. Because you can't eat it, so it's muktzeh. And it broke. It broke. The wine barrel broke. The wine is now dripping, gushing out. So what do you say? Maybe kli. You're allowed to bring a kli, and put it underneath, so the wine drips inside. So what do you see? That although it's not common, it doesn't happen commonly, doesn't happen very frequently, that the barrel of wine breaks, and they do allow it. And according to Tosfos says even without tevel. That's the difference between Rashi and Tosfos. Tosfos erases the word tevel. Tosfos says even without muktzah, the mere fact you're working too hard for an unexpected case, which is not part of your Shabbos scene, your Shabbos background, that alone is too much tircha and it's a problem. So how come that's allowed? Answers the Gemara, begulfi chadeti deshchichi. Gulfi are barrels. We're talking about a new barrel. By new barrels, it's common that they break. They're too new, they're like brittly, and they break a lot because it's common, it's expected. It's not called extra tircha. Like it always happens. Excuse the example, not a very nice example, for my grandchildren, a baby diaper. It's a big tircha and most and terrible to change a baby's diaper, right? From big things. Yeah, call it diaper, right? Nappy. So then what? So it's not called extra tircha. Besides the fact the baby needs it, it's part of life. I'm Dafka bringing a very extreme and crazy example. It's part of that's how life is. So those new barrels, they tend to break because they're new. So that's not called doing something too crazy, too this, too out of the way. That's the way it is. Frag the Gemara, the shchichi de paki. Paki means that they break. They break very frequently. Eseve, another question. From our very own Mishnah. Our very own Mishnah. No, It's not our Mishnah. It's a similar Mishnah. Excuse me. It's a similar Mishnah later on. Our Mishnah spoke about oil. Our oil. The other Mishnah speaks about a similar case that you are allowed to, as opposed to our Mishnah, I'm sorry, you put a kli under the candles in order to accept the sparks. Sometimes there are sparks who fall down. Nitzoitzes, the chasidus, right? Nitzoitzes, they have the fall, right? And you're allowed to put the thing under there. Why are you allowed? Nitzoitzes, the sparks are not so common. And it says, Gemara, Nitzoitzes not mishchichi. Yes, they are. Nitzoitzes are halachically called common enough, frequent enough, that you should really put the kli under them. It's not called extra tircha. It's part of the normal Shabbos schedule that there are sparks every once in a while. Mimele, I'm allowed to put, even though sparks are muktzeh, according to Rashi. According to Taisis, it's not because of muktzeh, it's because of tircha. Whatever the case is, if it's common, something that commonly happens, that chacham are not goizer. It's not going out of my way to do crazy things. Eseve. Another, I want to get to the word dalfi to try and do as much as we can since we don't have shir tomorrow. Eseve. Another question. Koifin ke'or al haner. Let's say you have a wooden house, right? And you have a candle there. That's obviously safety hazard. You're allowed to koifer, you're allowed to take a ke'oro, some kind of dish, and place it on top of the candle. I guess you still allow the candle to burn. Yeah, because you're not allowed to suffocate the candle. But somehow you put it in a safe way. Shelo yoichaz b'koiro. So the fire doesn't catch onto that. So the koiro, the beam, doesn't catch fire. Oh, why are you allowed to do that? You can say because of safety, but let's first see the question. Yeah, if it's something that doesn't happen commonly, and according to Rashi, candle is muktzah, right? It is accepted as muktzah, l'kul alma, even according to Reb Shimon. How come you're allowed to take something and service the muktzah? Or according to Tosfos, how come you're allowed to be toreach and do something to save something on Shabbos if it doesn't happen commonly? It's not so common that there are fires. And so the Gemara, we're talking about low ceiling houses that are small, low ceiling and all wood. It is common that there's fire there. It's too small, and there's a candle, small space, not much air, and the candle is very close to the walls. It's quite common that fire is there. Because of that, that's not a problem because it's accepted and common and normal, run of the mill, and then chacham are not gozer, and it's not called a tircha. The chen, one more, koiros shenishbera. Let's say one of the beams on the wall or on the ceiling started breaking. It's like tilted now. It's breaking. It's slanted. You're allowed to support it with a safsal. Now, imagine yourself the wall or the ceiling are about to fall halfway. It's falling. It's falling. Oh, before it falls down completely, you could leave the room. It's a sakana, so go out. So we don't say you should go out. You're allowed to take a safsal, a bench, or beams from the bed and support it. But you take the core is muktzah. The core of the building is something muktzah. You're not supposed to use it in Shabbos. Yeah, it broke in the middle of Shabbos. It's noilad or whatever that is. Yeah, the core. You're allowed to take a kli and support something that's muktzah. How come? And says the Gemara the same answer. Yeah, that is, these are kishuri. These are beams that are new. There are new beams. And new buildings, you don't know what happens there. The Kablan didn't yet, as we all know, in a new building in this country, you hope for the best. But Rashi says they didn't check them out yet, right? So we don't know. And therefore, it's common. If it's common, you're allowed to take whatever you need, even for muktzah, if something happens commonly. Last one, noisnin kli tachas hadelef beShabbos. Oh, one is allowed to put a kli under the delef, under the water that's dripping. Yeah, let's say you have water that's dripping from an unexpected place. It's not supposed to be dripping. You have retivut. You have some kind of water dripping in a way that's not supposed to. You can put a kli underneath. Same question. How come you're allowed to be toreach or to service the muktzah, according to Rashi? And says Gemara, we're talking about new houses where it's still common that they drip because, again, you didn't check them. We don't know what's going on there, and therefore it's accepted. That's the opinion. Tomorrow you will see Rav Yosef, and he says, "Hainu tamid Rav Chisda mishum dekamevatel kli meichono." Rav Yosef, I'm preparing you for tomorrow. Rav Yosef gives a very simple answer. Let's not forget, what was the statement of Rav Chisda? The statement of Rav Chisda was one clear thing: to accept the egg, roll up, to accept the egg before it falls, and put a kli. Not that it's accepting beyadine, to put the kli at the bottom of the slant, at the bottom of the hill, so the egg should fall into it is also. But if it goes, if it laid the egg in a normal place after it laid the egg, you put the kli on top, that's okay. Says Rav Yosef, super duper easy reason. Meaning, when I put it under the egg, I won't be able to move it the whole Shabbos. This is house arrest. For who? For the plate. Because the egg will stay on it. The egg is muktzah. Anything that hosts muktzah on Shabbos is what? Bossis. You can't move the whole thing. Mashenkin, when the egg is there and the plate is on top of it, not underneath it, it's not bossis, not at all. I'll be able to take out the plate whenever I feel like, fancy free. That's not called mevatel kli because I can move it whenever I want. It's on top, not in the bottom. That's very, very easy way to explain Rav Chisda. Mevatel kli is the reason, and if it's not mevatel kli, so let's stop. Then it's okay because it's on top. These are two opinions within Rav Chisda. Rav Yitzchak will have another pshat arguing on Rav Chisda. Hope you'll do it tomorrow on Shabbos, and it's a long Friday. And tzlacha uvracha. Thank you very much for coming to shir. Big chizik for me, you should know. Thank you very much. Kol hakavod. Thank you. Go to you. Yeah.